Good morning, everyone. Oh, I love that. You guys actually responded. Usually it's silent. So excited to be here today. As it mentioned, and I want that announcement for my house every time I walk in. Melanie Bell-Mayeda. That'd be amazing. My kids would probably not pay attention. But so I am a partner and managing director at IDEO. And I'm an MBA by training and a sociologist at heart. MBAs, yes. But that allows me to bring a unique lens to the work that we do at IDEO, which is called human-centered design. So today I will be talking about social movement design. And that's the framework and the elements that we see underpinning successful social movements that can be applied in the important work that you all do. But first I'll tell you a little bit about IDEO. For those who aren't familiar, IDEO is a global design and innovation firm. For more than 35 years, we have helped create positive impact through design, taking a human-centered approach to helping organizations in the public and private sectors to innovate and grow. We partner with leaders and change agents to identify new market opportunities and to design and launch innovative products, services, ventures, and brands. And what you're seeing behind me is our office in San Francisco where I work. So there is a framework that defines the way that we deliver innovation. We look at what's desirable for people, what they need and want, what's feasible, how we can create and deliver new solutions, and the viability of delivering what we create, or the business model. So innovation sits at the center of these three circles, but even more important is a belief in where we should start. So we start with people and keep them at the center of all that we do. And this focus on human needs, both what's shared and what's different, allows us to deliver solutions that can scale. So pictured there is work that we've done with this San Francisco Unified School District. We were helping to reinvent school lunch. So we spent a lot of time talking to students, finding out what they liked and certainly that they didn't like about food. We talked to parents, teachers, cafeteria workers, and we dove deep into the school infrastructure system to understand how to design a solution that could scale across San Francisco. So today I'm going to focus on the elements of successful social movements that capture the hearts and minds of people and help drive change. And yes, we believe these elements can be designed. Then I'll dive into the specific opportunities this presents for designing healthcare solutions that can fuel behavior change. And I'll focus on smoking cessation and sexual health. But first, I'd like to start with a story. So let's just say I have a friend, and we'll call her Melissa. She started as a social smoker, and she was shy. And so when you're out at a bar or a club in your 20s and lacking conversation, puffing on a cigarette gives you something to do. And it gives you a reason to engage, to bum a cigarette, or to ask for a light. But over time, this habit progressed. And Melissa went from social and weekends only, and she wasn't a smoker. And then frequency and occasions during the week progressed, and she started to see herself as a smoker. And then recognizing a growing dependence on cigarettes, she was a smoker that wanted to quit. So when she went to look for resources, she found this. Materials focused on how to quit, how to cross that line from smoker to non-smoker. So when she started, Melissa expected her journey to look like this: neat, linear, quick. When actually it looked more like this: a start and then a stumble, and the feelings of failure and fear that went along with that. A restart with some progress, and then the long journey of becoming and staying a non-smoker. And I'm happy to report that Melissa has been a smoke-free for over 17 years. As many in this audience well know, a whole new generation of smokers is coming online, with new formats and social media playing a role in the uptick of use. And many tools are still focused on the act of quitting. But smoking and quitting is a journey that reflects a person's lived experiences. So for Melissa, smoking was enjoyable, communal, identity-based, and certainly addictive. And quitting was hard and messy and far from linear. So it was not as simple as going from smoking to not smoking. It was about finding a way into long-term behavior change. This is not new news to this audience. So the question is, how do we bridge this gap? How do we actively meet people where they are and speak to them in the ways that encourage them to change their behavior? And how do we do this at scale? So I propose we can learn from and use social movement design. Now, when I say social movements, you're probably thinking about things like the Civil Rights Movement, the Women's March, and perhaps even the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge comes to mind. You might not be thinking recycling. So recycling became popular during World War II due to resource shortages. It was seen as an act of patriotism. But decades later, recycling was anchored to a new cause, helping to save the environment. And the focus was on getting kids to understand and get excited about recycling and the impact they could have. Along with this was having them bring those new behaviors home to their families. So kid as expert and doer was critical to this social movement. The other one was red. It's a little hard to go back, but this idea that you could use individual purchasing power as a social movement. So what exactly is a movement? It's the mobilization of individuals and communities toward collective action around a common cause. And for today, we're going to extend this to include the products, services, and experiences that can catalyze behavior change at scale. So how do we design one? We see 5 phases of a successful movement: setting the stage, mobilizing the troops, creating a call to action, reinforcing momentum, and then tipping over into scale. And I'll walk through each one briefly. In setting the stage, you want to frame problems as opportunities and tap into what matters. So this is about connecting to what matters to people personally, emotionally, and immediately. As I mentioned earlier in the San Francisco Unified School Lunch Project, this was about delivering healthy foods that kids would actually eat and doing so on a budget that schools could command. So here we shifted from the question of food that sucks less, which quite frankly is still a problem, to eating experiences that help fuel kids for the day. And that was an opportunity that a lot of people wanted to get on board with. In mobilizing the troops, you want to identify the individuals and the groups that can help people to see a future that they want and a path for getting there. So Cecile Richards is an icon for women's health and choice. And in our work with Planned Parenthood, we saw the importance of having a strong and inspiring leader who can embody a vision and fuel progress across the federation and across the nation. In the call to action, you want to extend invitations and break down big actions into small steps. So never underestimate the power of an ask to get people involved. And when you do so, make sure that it's actionable and accessible from day one. Working with the national campaign to prevent teen and unplanned pregnancy, we created Bedsider, a brand and set of digital tools that raised awareness and engagement around birth control for 18 to 29-year-olds. I'll talk about this example a little bit more later. But here's an example of a small step: setting up a birth control reminder through an app that will help you stick with your regimen. In reinforcing momentum, you want to build symbols of belonging and make impact tangible. So reinforce and celebrate the participation you've had thus far and design feedback loops that allow people to see that their efforts are actually paying off. The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge is a great example of both. From a widespread viral campaign where people opted into dumping buckets of ice-cold water on their heads, to sharing the impact of donations, over $220 million in the first year alone toward clinical trials and research, people could see their acts making a difference. And finally, scale. This is about focus and designing for mass activism. That was also about red. Oh, sorry guys, it's advancing without me right now. So with that framework in mind, I'm gonna hold this very lightly going forward. I want to talk to you about a new program for smoking cessation. So right now, I'm inspired by a new program called Pivot. It's not IDEO designed, but it does have an IDEO designer as part of its core team and a good friend of mine. And the Pivot program is anchored in a few things. One, the fact that this is not about quitting. It's about starting with the desire and willingness of the individual and engaging them in a journey to move them toward becoming a non-smoker. And the second piece is that the journey is actually designed, and there are 3 main phases: prepare, quit, and sustain. And they use engaging and delightful tools to help along this journey. And the third is about a connection to employers. So they're activating employers by quantifying the benefits of helping employees become non-smokers. So for example, the productivity and cost savings that come from a reduction in smoke breaks, sick days, and long-term health issues. So as I mentioned, this is a year-long journey of learning, doing, and measuring, and taking someone through the steps, step by step, to quit. And note, quit doesn't even happen until step 4. So the pre-work is a critical portion of the journey and support needed. And then after quitting, securing and sustaining a smoke-free life. And I know Melissa could have used this. So looking at Pivot in light of the social movement framework, one of the things they're doing is setting the stage. So they're engaging with people where they are, and they talk about the fact that we love smokers, and they're going to take them on this journey. And then they prepare them for the process of quitting. And there are 3 key components. One is a device that measures the level of CO2 in your body and gives you a way to see the impact of smoking and decreased use. The app, the second piece, guides you step by step through the process. And then finally, coaching, so someone to listen, understand, and engage you through the highs and the lows. In mobilizing the troops, as I mentioned, they engage 2 audiences, the smoker and the employer. So for the smoker, here you can see their new ad campaign. Again, this is about engaging people where they are, taking them on a journey, and using a language that embraces their experience. And who wouldn't want to see a turkey with a scarf on a unicorn? And for the employer, and I mentioned this before, a key focus is getting them to engage in supporting their employees through building awareness and funding. And this changes the dynamic around how to reach smokers who want to quit. And for Pivot, a call to action and reinforcing momentum are highly connected in the app. So this journey is not easy. So it's important to have moments of delight and reinforcement along the way. And imagine getting something like this after making it through a particularly rough one. So the Pivot takeaways. Create a call to action that reflects people's overall needs rather than focus on a single action or moment in time. And second, mobilize groups beyond the target audience who can help to drive reach and impact. Now let's talk about sex. IDEO worked with a national campaign to prevent teen and unplanned pregnancy to help reduce unplanned pregnancy for women between the ages of 18 and 29. So 7 out of 10 pregnancies in this age group are unplanned. And it's been shown that when women and men have the ability to plan, prevent, or space pregnancies, they're more likely to finish school, achieve their goals, and ultimately have healthier families. So the question we had was, how do you keep the person at the center of what you create and deliver, even when funding and functional requirements may seem to dictate language and experience? So we created a brand and tools that took available and quality information and translated it to reflect the needs and lives of these women so they would want to engage and participate. So in setting the stage with Bedsider, we engaged the audience in what they cared about. So 20-somethings cared a lot about better sex and stronger relationships. So this was about moving from medical descriptions to making talk about sex sexy and in the context of real life. So have you ever opened a new medication to find that thin piece of paper on the inside that's folded like 1,000 ways with a teeny, teeny, tiny print on it? So I'm gonna be honest, I really do try and read them. I'm never really sure I understand. I know I need to take the medication, and then I start running in my head these questions like, how many people and what study and what happens when they take too many pills in one day? So with that in mind, what's pictured here is the birth control finder. This tool provides side-by-side comparisons of the options, translating medical efficacy into pros, cons, and use in everyday life. So this distills the information a woman needs to select and start a birth control program, and hopefully stick with it because it's the option that's really right for her. And in the call to action, you want to use the language of the audience to make the steps actionable and achievable, and then engage at both large and small scale. So at the top is one element of the online site, a section called Fact or Fiction. It takes on the questions people in this age group are asking, but they're not always getting the best or even correct information. By taking these questions head on, embracing the awkwardness, and giving them quality information, it creates engagement and helps these tools to be more effective and to go viral. And at the bottom is a snapshot of an email subscription called Frisky Fridays. And it connects your reasons for starting and sticking with birth control to all the fun you can have. And in reinforcing momentum, Bedsider evaluated its impact and is fueling its ongoing efforts. So according to an independent evaluation, and I'm going to read this part because I want to make sure I don't get it wrong, Bedsider is the first digital intervention in reproductive health in the US with adults as an audience that is shown to prevent unplanned pregnancy. So women who engage with this site are 2.5 times less likely to have an unplanned pregnancy. And this is important because it shows how designing for individuals and their experience can actually help to achieve the public health outcomes you seek. And as part of its ongoing efforts, Bedsider launched Thanks Birth Control Day in November 2013. This is an opportunity to connect starting and sticking with birth control to the benefits, greater control over if and when you get pregnant, and then having all of the options that go along with that. IDEO wrote and scored an animated musical that you're watching behind me just for the occasion. It presents real outcomes with fun and humor and features dancing condoms and pill packs. So the Bedsider takeaways. Design with and for your audience and reflect them in the solution to increase engagement at every step. And refresh content and tools to sustain relevance and engagement long term. As you look at this framework, remember, it's not about doing everything, but rather identifying the elements that can help advance your work by building awareness, engagement, and scale. So how does this apply to you? When I thought about this audience, you have deep expertise in your areas of focus. You are adept at navigating the complexities of public and private requirements to do what you do. And most importantly, you are doing this work because you care about people and helping them to live healthier lives. So I'll leave you with 3 questions. How might you set the stage by helping people and organizations to prepare for the change you want? How might you engage and support people at key moments across their entire journey and not just the moment of change? And how might you create tools and experiences that allow individuals to help you drive momentum and scale? Thank you.